Well, good evening, everyone. I'm meteorologist Kit Thomas here in the Weather Center at ABC 24. Of course, we've got a pretty big event over the next several days. We've been talking about it the last couple of days here for severe thunderstorms. That's one half of it. That's what we've got here, the severe weather risk across the area, up to a level 4 on the scale of 1 to 5. The 5 being the highest risk, of course. A level 4, a moderate risk, technically is what it's called, across most of our viewing area. Then we've got the enhanced and slight just moving out. So this is for the severe thunderstorm threat over the next, for Wednesday, for tomorrow, and then we've got a couple more threats in the days ahead as well. So if you're watching us online on our Facebook page, ABC 24 Memphis, we do have a live chat function there. So if you're watching on any of our other platforms and you have a question, pop it in the comments there. I'll get to it when I can. I'll keep an eye on it of anyone who has any questions. I'm going to start through the forecast first and then go into questions afterwards or a little bit later on, just so that we can get through the meat and potatoes of the story, and then I'll start to answer some of the questions. Hopefully I can answer questions before you ask them. But let's just set things up first right now. We're pretty quiet here across the Mid-South. Nice view here from the Southern College of Optometry of downtown Memphis, looking out from Midtown. So a nice day out there this evening, but it's going to be changing quite a bit as we head into tomorrow. I just got the push alert for our ABC 24 app on my watch here. So if you're joining us very shortly here on our Apple or Android devices, welcome you. Getting into some of the raw details of this severe thunderstorm setup that we've got over the next couple of days. As far as the temperatures, well, they're kind of behind me. Right now we're looking at 70 degrees here in Memphis, 67 in Tunica. Oxford, you're kind of behind there at 66. Blytheville is also at 66. Batesville at 70. Around the area, we're mostly in the upper 60s, though we're still hanging on to 70 degrees here in Memphis right now. But here's a quick breakdown of the severe threats that we've got over the next couple of days. I'll scoot this out of the way just a little bit. As we've got the wind threat up to a medium threat, so level 3 out of 5 for us. The tornado threat is on the higher end of the scale. As far as the severe components, it's the highest threat up to that level 4 out of 5. This is why we have the moderate risk issued for our viewing area. The large hail is also going to be a threat. We're looking at 2-inch or larger hail threat, but as far as the 1 inch or greater threat, that's going to be possible there. But then the flooding threat. Wednesday evening is technically more of a level 4 threat, or a high risk rather than the very high, but it's still going to be very widespread that we're seeing the flooding over the next several days. Here's a look at the wind alerts. We're starting off tomorrow, before the rain even gets here. We're going to be very gusty. Gusts up to 50 miles per hour for most of our viewing area, with the exception of Alcorn and Tippah and Lafayette County there in northern Mississippi. Still going to be breezy, but not quite so gusty in that area. So let's time this out here as we go through the morning. We've got wind gusts upwards of 30 miles per hour already at 9 a.m. That's going to pick up through the day, gusting over 40 miles an hour by 3 o'clock, and we could see gusts reaching 50 miles per hour, maybe even stronger than that as well across parts of our viewing area. So a widespread wind threat as this storm is pulling in all of the moisture and heat and energy for this thunderstorm complex that we're going to be setting up. Of course, we've had a few people just now joining us on various apps. Maybe you're watching on our 24 Plus streaming app, or you're watching on your phone, your Apple or Android device. We welcome you. We also have a Facebook live stream. We also have a YouTube live stream without a chat, but on Facebook we do have a chat function over there. We've got a comment here from Brian. Better bring my plans in. Yeah, bring your plans inside for the next 4 days. We're not going to see sunshine until Sunday, and even then it might just be cloudy. Monday is when we start to really clear things out. So the atmosphere is already primed for severe weather. There's already a threat today, but it's not in our area. One of the few days it's not. But we see here across parts of eastern Nebraska into Kansas, a little bit into Missouri and Iowa as well. That pink shade behind the clouds, that's actually a severe thunderstorm watch, a tornado watch from Kansas down to the Red River Valley there in Texas and Oklahoma. So we've got that severe threat already happening. You can kind of see we've got sort of some agitated clouds across the Great Basin, but the upper level clouds sweep down and are scooping across the Central Plains very quickly. You can see just that motion. That's the jet stream. The next couple of days it's going to shift a little more east and stagnate right here across the Mid-South. We're going to see the chance for thunderstorms develop very, very quickly. And with that, we've also got a surface cyclone and a low pressure system that is going to be developing. So Wednesday at 1 o'clock, we have this area of the highest risk for us is up to a level 4 right now. That's the moderate risk from the Storm Prediction Center. As a cold front comes in, colliding with the moisture here in the warm sector, that's going to bring the chance for severe thunderstorms. And they're going to be pretty widespread. This model lining up almost exactly with the Storm Prediction Center's moderate risk. We're going to see widespread severe storms from the lower Ohio Valley all the way down through the Mid-South. That'll continue through the overnight with the heavy rainfall. Then Thursday, notice how we go from a cold front to a stationary front. Whenever you see the red and the blue, the circles and the triangles here, that's when we start to see sort of this agitated line. It's sort of a tripwire for thunderstorms. Instead of the front plowing through, this is just the hair trigger for all of the warm, moist air. Once it reaches that front, it sparks off those thunderstorms. So this is going to be our focusing mechanism for storms on Thursday evening. There's a pretty widespread threat. It's a level 2 risk, so a slight risk across the area, not quite as intense as we have on Wednesday, but it's still going to be widespread threat for us. Then as we get into Friday, we get out to the day 4 threat. So tomorrow is day 2, then day 3. Day 4 is this slight risk here, this shade in yellow. The thing is, the Storm Prediction Center doesn't give down to the level 1 threat that far out from some uncertainty risks or matters there. But we'll start to see a sort of a surface low developing on that. That's going to transition that stationary front into more of a cold front. More cold air will push in by Saturday. And that's going to be Saturday morning here into the afternoon. We start to see that more progressive front, and that'll push through. And that will end our severe weather and the rain for us. But it's going to take until Sunday before it really clears us out. Here we see Sunday evening, most of that rain has moved out. So that's a lot. I had to really quickly go through that during the 5 and 6 p.m. newscasts earlier. So if you were joining us for that, hopefully you caught all of that when we were going through it. But I do want to go through the timing in more detail here on that forecast. Of course, we saw it lines up almost exactly with the Storm Prediction Center's moderate risk across our area and up to the north. As we go through the afternoon, notice here around 3 o'clock, I think this model tends to overdo the clouds, and I think it's still doing it now, but you can still see some of the darker gray areas. That would be patches of clear skies. Of course, you can see up towards Nashville. That's actually some clear sky out there. I think we'll see a lot more sunshine through the day tomorrow, and that's going to allow those thunderstorms to really, really energize and get the atmosphere unstable. Whenever we talk about stability or instability, think of when you hold a balloon underwater. If you've ever held a balloon underwater in a pool, or if you just imagine it, it wants to rush up. But if you've got something holding it down, so you've got a pool floaty on that, you're holding it down, there's sort of a lid on that buoyancy, the balloon that wants to rise. If you remove that, then it just shoots up really, really quickly. And that's what's going to be happening tomorrow. We're going to have this little stable layer through the mid-afternoon that's going to prevent the balloons, the air parcels from rising. But as the surface warms and warms and warms, it's going to be pushing against that lid. Eventually, the cap will break, that lid will break, and we'll see those thunderstorms vigorously rising, producing severe weather for us. And here's when that happens around 5 o'clock across central Arkansas, moving into our area. But I want to show you a couple of features here. This model, it's not an exact representation of what will happen, but of what may happen. Notice that shape, sort of that curved shape, that kidney bean kind of shape there with some of these thunderstorms here. That's basically the model saying, hey, these are going to be supercells. Supercell thunderstorms are storms that have a tilted and rotating updraft. Those are the ones that produce the largest hail, the most intense winds, and tornadoes as well. So the model already pointing out that we're going to have some tornadoes with this is concerning that it's going to show up on the model already. As we go through our Wednesday evening, 7 o'clock, we'll pause it here. We've got that heavy rain across the western Tennessee counties here, and then moving into the northern Mississippi counties as well with some very heavy rainfall. 11 o'clock, still some very heavy rain. And notice how it's just locked in right there on the I-40 corridor. That's what this model is focusing on. Other models have it a little farther to the north, but as we go 3 a.m., still raining until noon tomorrow almost, or on Thursday. And then we start to see more clearing. Notice that we've got more of that breaking in the clouds there. So that's going to, again, destabilize the atmosphere. If you remember from that last graphic, we've got that tripwire just to our north here. So that's going to spark off more thunderstorms on Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening. We've got another round of severe storms that roll through. This time a little more focused north of I-40 rather than into northern Mississippi, though they could spread that way by around 9 o'clock. And the thing is, we're not having that push of the cold front to come through to really spark them off. We're not in the warm sector. We're just under a stationary boundary. So Thursday isn't going to be as intense or as widespread as Wednesday will be, but still going to be there. As we get into Friday morning, we have more rain still coming around. It's still that lingering severe from our Thursday. But then Friday, we actually have a bigger push from the south to sort of clear us out for several hours. That could bring us the chance for some severe thunderstorms, but it does look like it's going to be less rainfall for us on Friday. Looking at the tornado threat for tomorrow, though, of course, we've got several rounds of rain after this, but the threat for tornadoes is mainly focused right here in that moderate risk just into the Memphis metro, and then up towards Paducah and a little farther north from there. But whenever we see these hatch marks on this kind of a graphic, look up here, we've got that hatch mark, EF2 or stronger. So the Storm Prediction Center is expecting more significant tornado activity on these thunderstorms, more so than we saw just this last weekend. We did have one confirmed tornado, but we're going to see more widespread tornadoes possible with this system. Looking at the severe hail threat, again with that hatch mark, now upwards of 2-inch diameter hail. All of the colors are for 1-inch hail. 2-inch hail is within this hatch mark, so we've got a pretty decent chance for that. The highest risk within the red. And then the severe wind threat also on the significant side, significant threat of 75 mile per hour wind gusts or more. Here's a look at the rain totals. Now this model is a short range model and it only goes through Friday. We're going to still have rain on Saturday. This particular model is showing upwards of a foot of rain in 3 days' time. And we'll have a 4th day as well. But notice anything in the gray, the white to the gray here, that's going to be upwards of 12 inches of rainfall on this particular model. Now some models are bringing it a little more towards the north, so it's not quite focused on the Bolivar area, but maybe towards Dyersburg, maybe towards the Boot Heel and Pemiscot County there. But it's just the models are sort of disagreeing on exactly where it is, but they're all pretty much I-40 and north. So northern Mississippi, not going to be quite as dire of a situation, but this is a ton of rain over the next several days here. And again, this is just 3 days. We still have Saturday, a 4th day, to go through that. Trevor put this together earlier today. I'll scoot this out of the way here. This is the 4-day rainfall total records in Memphis. The most we've had in a 4-day time period, all the way back in 1877, over a foot of rainfall. Our forecast for more than that right now, so it's going to be a significant threat. The most recent time we've had anywhere close to that was back in 2001. So a ton of rain is expected for this. We've gone through a bunch of these threats here, and sometimes they can be pretty scary, but again, it's be prepared, not scared. That's a nice little catchphrase that we like to say. Something to keep in mind, just, tuning into the weather forecast here on ABC 24, keeping your app alerts turned on your devices. If you have us on your phone, the ABC 24 app, you can make sure that those alerts are turned on. And whenever you have a tornado warning, severe thunderstorm warning, a flash flood warning, we're going to have a lot of those in the next few days, making sure that you have those alerts on, but have multiple ways to get alerts. Making sure you've got your TV handy, you've got that tuned to our channel through the evening as we've got those potential warnings to be popping up. And then also having a weather radio. You can usually find them at drugstores, at Walgreens. I think they have them at Kroger as well. Just ask someone if they have weather radios, or if you have, next day delivery from Amazon, order it off there. But having a weather radio, programming it to your location, it issues it by the county. So it's going to go off not based on your street, but by your county. So maybe one half of your county gets a tornado warning. You don't have that warning. It'll still go off either way. But a weather radio is more of a tool to say, hey, seek more information. The other thing is those outdoor warning sirens. Sometimes people call them tornado sirens. They can also go off for severe thunderstorm warnings. They can go off for biohazard containments or nuclear reasons. There's a bunch of different reasons they can go off. Most commonly, people associate them with tornadoes, but those are meant for people who are outside. They are not meant to wake you up unless it is on your street block. You will hear it. If it's several blocks away, you likely won't hear those outdoor warning sirens. So don't trust them. Have other ways in your room, making sure you've got the wireless emergency alerts turned on your phone, not just from our app, but the government issued alerts. Make sure those are turned on and keeping your phone off silent mode overnight. So knowing your safe place, this is another thing to keep in mind. Knowing where you need to go during a tornado warning or during any sort of severe thunderstorm warning. You want to be in the most interior room, lowest level of your home or residence. If you live in a high rise, getting to the bottom floor, that's going to be where you're most safe. And then the final thing is planning for flooding. If you plan to travel over the next few days, of course, a lot of us still have to go to work, myself included. I'll be right here. Knowing your other routes to get to work, just in case one route is flooded. There's the fun saying, of course, turn around, don't drown. There's the other saying that's not quite as popular, but I like it. When in doubt, find another route. Even if you have just like maybe I can make it through. You know, that truck made it through. I've got a relatively high-rise vehicle. I should be able to make it. Don't trust it. Especially with moving water. I believe the numbers go 6 inches can move a sedan, 12 inches can move a truck, 18 inches can move an 18-wheeler. So that amount of water is all it takes to float a car, and if it's moving, it will take you off the road. The thing is, we've got, I didn't pull this graphic in, I want to grab it right now. We've got a couple risks. So we were talking about the Storm Prediction Center risks, the severe weather threat just a moment ago. This is from the Weather Prediction Center. So this is another side of the many different departments of NOAA, including the National Weather Service, that issue all of these outlooks and forecasts. Tuesday, day one, we're good, we're clear. But this is looking into Wednesday. We've got the level 3. It's different from the Storm Prediction Center, which goes up to 5. They don't have the orange one for this one, but it's a level 3, another moderate risk for flash flooding on Wednesday. Then as we go into Thursday, we're going to have back-to-back days of incredibly heavy rainfall, and that is going to super saturate the ground. I'm actually going to move this graphic just a little north so you can see a little more detail here. Anywhere from the boot heel of Missouri, parts of Lauderdale County, Dyer County, and Mississippi County, all the way up to past Paducah, almost to the Ohio River. This is a high risk for flooding. Anytime that we have a high risk for flood, that is going to be life-threatening, expected life-threatening flooding across anywhere in this pink shade. The thing is, on high-risk days, days which a high risk for flooding is issued, those single days account for 80% of all flood-related damages and fatalities. So that's a statistic, but basically this is going to be the day that we have emergency situations from flooding. Not just severe thunderstorms, but from flooding. Flooding is sort of a silent killer, a secret killer that sneaks up on you. A lot of people don't associate it with as much of a risk, but we're talking about streams and creeks that that in your lifetime you've never seen them flood, could very likely flood. Some of the language from the National Weather Service on this setup is some of the strongest I've seen for a flooding risk. It's among the strongest, I would say. I've seen several incredible flooding events. But we have a flood watch. And this is some language you don't see often with a flood watch. Sometimes you'll see this with severe thunderstorms, often with tornadoes, a particularly dangerous situation. And some of the language that they have, I pulled this straight from the description of this watch. Generational rainfall amounts could lead to catastrophic flooding. So, like I said, creeks and streams you've never seen spill their banks will be spilling their if not more than a week. Many of the major rivers will likely be swollen for a couple of weeks to come. So it's going to be a massive amount of water. Let's take a look at some of the totals again. Like I said, with over a foot of rainfall coming out of this, that is going to take a while to drain, number one. Number two, as all of that seeps into more and more creeks and streams, here in Memphis, the thing is, we're going to have a lot of urban flooding, just all of the streets and concrete and asphalt and everything that's impermeable. Our drainage systems are likely to be overwhelmed, so there's going to be a lot of just low places that gather water and turn into ponds for hours on end. So we're likely to see flash flood warnings across much of the area as we head into the next few days here. So looking ahead, of course, that's the main threat. We've got some comments here. Are you able to be more, to see more of the specifics like South Haven? So this is a good question. One thing whenever we're talking about timing or amounts like this, it's difficult to give specifics. This is why we've got sort of the ranges here, 12 to 15 inches. And this is one model. Let me show you another model. I promise this is all relevant to your question. This is the European model, I believe. Yes, so notice how this one doesn't have that big swath, but it still has a focus of over 12 inches of rainfall there. So Memphis might see 6 to 8, it might see 12 to 15. These are all just estimates of if this exact scenario happens, this is the result. And models are just one way of viewing the atmosphere, and we have to consider multiple ways of viewing it, because sometimes they can be slightly wrong. Or the thing is, a model is never right. A group of models gives you a better idea. So this is another idea here. More out of our viewing area where we see upwards of a foot of rainfall, but 10 to 12 in Dyersburg, 10 to 12 in Covington, 6 to 8 in Memphis. That would include South Haven. Whenever we're talking about these kinds of things, getting down to that small scale of a single city, what the impacts are, what the exact conditions will be, it's nearly impossible to say. Because again, just looking at a single county, you know, Fayette County was in that 12 to 15 contour, even up to 16 possibly. But here it has it more into that 6 to 8 inch rainfall. So it's tough to say exactly what South Haven will see. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. That's a common phrase we also say for events like this. Tyler asks, when will the wind die down tomorrow night? So we have that wind advisory I mentioned a moment ago. I think I mentioned it. Yeah. The wind advisory goes until midnight. So it's going to be pretty much until midnight. Maybe 10, you'll start to see it starting to die down a little bit from the peak of those wind gusts. Again, the peak is going to be around 50 miles an hour. But if we have a severe thunderstorm coming through, we might have another round of those storms coming through that bring those winds back up. So it's going to be tough to say. So Tyler, thank you for that question. CJ, hi Kit, how's it going? Can you show how bad the lightning is going to be the next couple of days? That, I think we have a graphic for that. I haven't used it in a while. Let me search for it real quick. It's tough to say, like, if we have those severe thunderstorms coming through, it's going to be very frequent lightning. So any of these severe thunderstorms are going to be producing lightning and probably an abundance of it. Do we have that? It doesn't look like we have a forecast graphic for that. I'll show you a proxy. So if we go back to this, this model that we were looking at a moment ago, we'll advance that through. Anytime you see like the red shades here, the red shades are going to be the deeper convection. So the stronger thunderstorms, that's where we're going to be looking at heavier rainfall, heavier convection, and more likelihood of seeing lightning. So pretty widespread areas of heavy thunderstorms across this area. And then we push that forward a little more. Yeah, we're going to have a lot of lightning with these thunderstorms. Haven asks, what's the likelihood of tornadoes and during what time frame will they possibly hit? So the likelihood, I'll take you over to this one. So I'll give you a breakdown of these colors here. The green is 2%, then it goes 5%, 10%, 15%. stay with me. That sounds like very little. You know, we talk about 80% chance of rain. It's going to be rain everywhere. That's a very different calculation. These percentages for 2 to 15, we've got the 15% here. This is for within 25 miles of any given point. So if we have a tornado right here within 25 miles, that would be one tornado within 25 miles there. I think I've got an actual measure tool I could show. So if we just go from northern Mississippi County, all right, so my estimate of 25 miles was much bigger. So within that much space, we'll say that much space there, within 25 miles of any point, there's a 15% chance. But you see how much area there is that has within 25 miles? It is going to be several tornadoes within this area that would still verify that 15%. Anytime we talk about the red shade here, 15% risk for tornadoes, we're talking about outbreak level. So it's going to be widespread. The time frame, Haven, I'll give you a quick answer. 4 p.m. to midnight is roughly the time frame. If we look at this particular model here, this puts it coming into our eastern Arkansas counties by around 4:30, 5 o'clock or so. And then it continues towards Memphis around 6. 7 o'clock, we could be transitioning out of the tornado threat in Memphis, but along the leading edge. If you're watching any of our coverage the other day on Sunday evening, the leading edge of these storms is where we were having some of those tornado threats. That leading edge will continue to bring the tornado threat to places like Holly Springs, Bolivar, 9, 10, 11 o'clock, possibly up to midnight. But the thing is, it starts to retreat back north. So I think that will be reducing the tornado threat. The thing is, if you have a tornado and it's pushing into the environment, into the parameters that bring the tornadoes, that push in helps it to eat that up. Once it starts to retreat, it's sort of pulling away from the environment. So what we're seeing past midnight is that retreat back north and sort of splitting of the line. So I think past midnight we should be in a better situation. So good question there, Haven. Thank you for watching along with us tonight. Coming up on a half hour of this live stream, and I do need to give production some time to get ready for the show at 9 o'clock, but if anyone else has any more questions, go ahead and pop them in our comments there. We've got about 30 people watching, so I appreciate you all watching on Facebook with us and across all platforms as well. Of course, Haven, thank you for joining us, like I said. But yeah, if you have, I misread Brian's message earlier. Bring my plants in. Yes, plants, plans or plants. Bring them inside for the next several days because all the rainfall that's coming down is going to be canceling your plans and probably damaging your plants. So if you have potted plants that you just got started on, bring them inside or at least bring them under a cover out of the wind the next couple of days. If you have hanging plants, setting those down on the ground. If your trash pickup day is tomorrow with the winds, keep an eye on your trash can. It might be your neighbor's 3 doors down. And anything else, lawn furniture, bicycles, any loose items that are outside just from doing some gardening. I'm guilty of that. Make sure that those are secure because the winds, if severe winds come through, those become projectiles. If they catch wind, because they're large objects, they'll get knocked over by the wind. I think that is about all that we have for our comments. So once again, thank you so much for watching us here. One last thing before we go. If you're watching from your phone, you can search this on Facebook after you're done with watching us. ABC 24 Weather Watchers. This is our Facebook group. You can scan that QR code as well if you have a phone available. This is where we're going to get some of the pictures from you. So one thing we need from you, aside from you being safe first over the next few days, is second, if you can get pictures of the flooding, of the severe effects, either wind, the hail. If you do see a tornado, be careful. We don't encourage chasing, but we encourage safe viewing if you can. Share it with us if you would, please, on our Facebook group. If you join that, part of the approval process gives us permission to use it on air. So we appreciate if you would let us use that, because that can sort of be our eyes in the field. And then we can relay that to the National Weather Service as reports of severe weather. So with that, I'm going to wrap things up here. One last question here from Charlie. Any idea on where to get sandbags in the area? I'm sorry, I do not. I will pass that information along to our news department, and I will make sure that that is one of our stories we do tomorrow afternoon, because that is a very good question that I don't know the answer to, but we will certainly seek a solution for that in the next couple of days here. So once again, I've been meteorologist Kit Thomas. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you to Judy Black, who's been running our live stream here, and for everyone in the back as well in production who's been helping me out with this. We've got to get ready for the 9 o'clock. Join us at 9 o'clock for your forecast and all of your latest news headlines, and then as well on ABC 24 for those details once again. Once again, thanks so much.